to Russia. If we are to form an alliance with Rome, then it is with the Eastern European Christians that we're talking about. And the Christians in Syria belong to Rome, not to the Roman Catholic Church. Most of them belong to Rome. There may be some who have their alliance with the Roman Catholic Church, but they, I believe, in a minority. And so if these Christians are attacked and slaughtered in Syria, it will provoke a response from Russia. This can be one of the ways, one of the sinister and shameful ways that Russia can be baited. The other way, of course, is for a full-scale launch, a full-scale Turkish attack launched on Syria. And then when Turkey launches an attack on Syria, because Syria and Iran have a defense treaty, Iran will now be also part of the war, and Iran will attack Turkey. And it will only be a matter of time, I believe, will Russia will be drawn into the war. And so today, we want to send a message from Islamic eschatology to Russia, and to remind Russia that the Bolshevik revolution did not happen by accident. No. It was part and parcel of a diabolical planning that was meant to stab Russia in the back, and you know what I'm talking about. On the eve of the First World War, they planned for you. From the front door, Britain and France reached out to Russia for an alliance. Britain and France had already made an alliance. And then when they convinced Russia to join the alliance, it became the Triple Alliance. Or was it called the Triple Entente, I believe. But part and parcel, eventually, of that which was used to bait Russia, to lure Russia into the alliance, was the perception of the Ottoman Empire being on its last legs. The Ottomans had been beaten in the Balkans, and they were now vulnerable because of the loss of the European territories of the Ottoman Empire. Constantinople was vulnerable from a Bulgarian attack, for example. And because of that perception of weakness on the part of the Ottoman Empire, the sick man of Europe, they called it, they felt that Ottoman Empire was ripe for the plucking. And so they offered Russia, if you will join with us in the alliance, then we will give you Constantinople. We'll allow you to get Constantinople. The whole of Rome had been longing to get back Constantinople since the Ottoman Sultan Muhammad Fatih had conquered Constantinople. And he had added salt to the wound of the loss of the capital city of Rome, Constantinople. He had added salt to that wound in what I declared to be a disgraceful act, and I have no need to change that word at all. I'm fully conscious of what I'm saying. I'm 71 years of age. I have spent my life in the study of Quran and the Hadith, in the pursuit of Islamic knowledge. And so I have some credentials to speak. And it is with full knowledge I say it was a disgraceful act to take Hagia Sophia, the foremost cathedral of Christendom, of Eastern Rome, and transform it into a masjid. Disgraceful. And so that added salt to the wound. It created hatred in Eastern Europe and Russia, eternal hatred for Islam when you did such a thing. It's like a stab in the very heart of Eastern Europe, Rome. This is what they did. And so when Russia was offered Constantinople by Britain and France on the eve of the First World War, the Russians were very pleased to accept that offer. And then the First World War commenced on cue, as though it was pre-planned. In fact, it was pre-planned. When They had offered to you Constantinople through the front door. Russia, are you listening? Guess what they did through the back door? These people who are duplicitous in their conduct, who are deceptive, who speak with forked tongues. And Russia, remember that Israel has a PhD in deception. And Israel is going to act in precisely the same way that Britain and France acted. What they did was to attack Russia from the back door when the Russian troops were very close to Constantinople. And then, in order to prevent Russia from taking Constantinople, which they had offered you through the front door, what they did was to plan and to execute the Bolshevik Revolution the way that they planned and executed 9/11. There is research to be done, but I guess the Russians already know what I'm talking about. Eastern Europe knows already what I'm talking about. The connection, for example, between Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution. The connection, for example, between the Americans and the Siberian Railway to ensure that the Russian regime would not have the use of the Siberian Railway, and that the Bolsheviks would be able to use the railway to bring in troops and men. So the Bolshevik Revolution took place at the time when it did, I believe in October 1917, in order to prevent Russia, Rome, from getting Constantinople. This was their duplicitous conduct. This was the double standards. This was the forked tongue. And Russia, you should beware now, because we are on the verge of another world war. And they would attempt to deceive you one more time. I believe the heart of the deception this time will not be France, will not be England, will not be the United States. It will be Israel. When they brought about the Bolshevik Revolution, they did it not only to prevent Russia from getting Constantinople, but for a second reason as well. The Bolshevik Revolution led in 1922 to the creation of the Soviet Union and to the communist ideology. Communism was not created by a schoolboy. Communism is not schoolboy economics. Not at all. The communist socialist economic theories were very, very, very skillfully constructed. It brought about what may be described as more egalitarianism in the economy. For example, the gap between the rich and the poor was brought down, made so small. The Russians today must be looking back at the days of the Soviet Union with nostalgia, because today in Russia it's gone so high. The rich are so rich and the poor are so poor. The gap is so high. They did it because there was some merit in the communist or socialist ideology. But they had state control of the economy and a dictatorial regime. And it was an atheist regime. And its mission for which it was constructed was to destroy the Christian foundations of Russian society and of Eastern Christian Europe. And they wanted to do that so that the Western Christian faith would have the upper hand, would dominate. Because the Western Christian faith and the Judeo-Christian alliance always recognized that Rome represented a threat to them. And then look at what happened in the Second World War. Was it an accident that even after Germany had surrendered, they continued the war and then they stopped the war at a certain time? Why did they stop it at that time? Why did they not go forward? The reason why they stopped the war at the time that they did is so that the Soviet Union would have total control over Rome. All of the territories of Eastern Europe, where Rome was located, Eastern Christianity, so that the Soviet Union would continue its oppression of Christianity in that part of the world. And so the Bolshevik Revolution was a stab in the back of Russia. It brought with it certain benefits, but there was poison with it. Like, Al Jazeera. Some things which are very good, but so much of poison. Like, for example, Harun Yahya and all his books. So much of it's so good, but look at what his eschatology teaches you. And so it is very likely we are now on the verge of the big wars. We are at a critical moment in history, and Syria is the center of the chessboard. And it is necessary for the Russian leadership to ensure that they are not deceived. Be careful, be careful, be careful, because those who you're dealing with have PhDs in deception. One last word. Yes, Syria is the center of the chessboard in AkhirZAMAN, or the last age. Yes, indeed, we believe that the three main actors of AkhirZAMAN, or the end time, are eventually all going to be in Damascus at the same time. And so the battle for Damascus is at the heart of AkhirZAMAN. Imam al-Mahdi will be in the masjid. We mentioned in our last lecture that Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam said that the masjid would be barricaded, locked up, the gates, and the Imam will be inside. And that when the prayer is about to start, the Son of Mary will come down from the sky with his hands resting on the wings of two angels. The Son, of the Virgin Mary. Do you remember now? We Muslims, we share with you the view that Mary was a virgin. The Quran says about Mary, she is the highest of all the women in heaven. That's her status. That is what links us both, you and I. Our recognition of the status of Maryam alayhi salam, or Mary. And we and you are the only two people on the face of the earth who believe that Jesus will return, Nabi Isa alayhi salam. There is so much that links us together. We should not be fighting with each other. We should now be cooperating with each other. When Nabi Isa alayhi salam, or Jesus, returns, comes down from the sky, with his hands resting on the wings of two angels, he will come down in that masjid in Damascus, not in Rome, not in Washington, not in London, and not in Jerusalem, in Damascus. And when he comes down, the Imam al-Mahdi will recognize him and say, this is the Son of Mary. In just the same way that John the Baptist has said, here he is, this is the man you've been waiting for. This is the Messiah. And so history will repeat itself. The divine plan is that of positive recognition. Firstly, through John the Baptist, Nabi Yahya alayhi salam, and now for the second time with Imam al-Mahdi. And the Imam will ask Jesus alayhi salam to lead the prayer. And he will say, no, the people have appointed you as Imam or prayer leader, so you lead the prayer. And after the prayer is over, he will say, open the gates. Meaning that the masjid, or the house of Allah, is barricaded, blocked with gates, which is a taste of things to come. They have already assassinated one Syeikh, Syeikh Muhammad Sa'id Ramadan al-Bhuti rahimahullah. Shame on you, shame on you, shame on you for what you did to him. And may Allah